Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am so excited that you're here and I cannot wait to chat with you. So, today we're going to be talking about how to grow your podcast without relying on social media. So, in the past year or so, I've unintentionally ditched social media due to my busy schedule. You might think that not being on social media caused my downloads on my podcast to dwindle, but spoiler alert, it did not. In fact, I've actually seen a steady increase in new listeners. Ditching social media doesn't mean that I ditch my marketing efforts altogether. It just means that I picked a different way to get my show in front of new people. Because let's face it, the current social media algorithm is not doing us any favors. So if you want to continue to grow your show without relying solely on social media, that involves truly diversifying your promotional efforts and utilizing various different channels. So let's dive into the different options you can pursue for growing your podcast without social media. So first up, we have networking. So when you're networking and attending conferences and meetups and connecting with other creators and potential collaborators, you're able to organically, you don't want to just be like, hey, my podcast is blah, 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 you should listen to it. Like that's fammy. Absolutely not. But if it organically comes up in the conversation, you can share your show with people because networking is really great for allowing you to build relationships and leverage other people's audiences and talk about collaboration ideas and stuff like that. So I think networking is a really great way to get in front of new people and really just maximize your reach. And that doesn't mean you're going to immediately get an influx of new listeners just because you went to a couple networking events. But those people can get to know you better, and it kind of like puts that into motion so that when they do get to know you and they are in the know about what you have to offer, they can share your podcast organically because they know you have one. You're not just going to come out right the gate and be like, I have a podcast, but you can get to know that person. And over time, they will become more familiar with you and what you have to offer. I'm a huge proponent of networking, and I think it works wonders. Next up, we have podcast guesting. So while I do recommend sharing your expertise on more than just people's podcasts, I feel like podcast guesting is really one of the quickest ways to get more eyes on your own show. Podcast listeners are very loyal and they will take their favorite podcasters' guest recommendations to heart. So when you are guesting on other people's shows, they can easily come back to your show. And instead of, telling them, hey, go follow me on Instagram, you can literally say, I also host a podcast called yada, yada, yada. Go check me out. And then, the host can link back to your show and they stay in the app and everyone's happy. So podcast guesting is really one of my favorite ways to grow your show. Next up, we have cross promotion. So you can partner with other creators or podcasters to cross promote each other's content. So this can involve things like mentioning each other in episodes, swapping ad spots on each other's shows, or even co-producing episodes together. The sky is really the limit here. So I think this is a fun, unique idea to go and both promote each other and promote that collaboration and promote collaboration versus like competition. So next up, we have community engagement. So engage with online communities and forums that are relevant to your niche. So maybe Facebook groups or Reddit threads, whatever that may be. You want to participate in these discussions, offer your valuable insights, and you can subtly mention your show where it makes sense. Obviously, you want to make sure you follow the community guidelines of that specific community and avoid being like too promotional because that can be kind of a turnoff for people. I personally know people who have had great success utilizing Facebook groups or forums like Reddit for this. So I definitely think that this is a really great way to drive people to your show if you're, looking to go beyond social media. Next up, we have email marketing. So I'm a huge proponent of having an email list. I have always been team email list, team email marketing. So this should not come as a shock to you. But if it does, email marketing is where it's at. So I want you to build an email list of your listeners and regularly communicate with them. Send out newsletters with updates, exclusive content, maybe some behind the scenes insights. And if you're planning on hosting like live events or Q&A sessions that are relevant to your show or would be relevant to your listeners, then you can do that as well. So I think email marketing is just a great way to stay in contact with people, and it allows you to kind of put a name to a listener versus like just seeing your downloads number and be like, I wonder who these people are. You actually get to see their name and their email address and get to talk to them, and they can actually reply back to you, which is one of the really great things about email marketing, is because you have that like two-way communication set up. Next up, we have search engine optimization, or SEO. So this is really great for driving more people to your show. You can do SEO on your website. You can also do SEO within the podcast app, which I talked about more in the last episode, which I'll link below for you guys. But essentially, you want to optimize your website and podcast descriptions for relevant keywords to improve your visibility in the search engine results. This can really help attract organic traffic from people searching for content related to your show. And, you're going to reach a much wider audience this way, because sometimes people are just looking on Google for recommendations. And if your show pops up, then they are more likely to listen than, if they were randomly stumbling upon it on social media. I feel like Google is a little more like sporting in that sense, and people are more likely to listen. Next thing is live events and meetups. So you can host live events, workshops, or meetups in your local area, or you can do it virtually if you would prefer that. I am more of a virtual person myself. I would love to do live stuff in the future in person, but that's just not where I'm at right now in life. But this allows you to interact with your audience face to face and promote your show to them when it makes sense. And you can encourage your attendees to spread the word to their networks about your show, about you, and what you have to offer. And it's just a really great way to continue that relationship with your listeners. You can also create shareable content for Pinterest. So Pinterest is I feel like it's a slept on platform, but it is really high converting if your audience is there. So you want to produce content related to your show that is highly shareable, such as like infographics, short video clips, or compelling quotes. If your audience is on Pinterest, it's a really great place to be. I highly recommend it. Most niches can do pretty well on Pinterest, as long as it's not something like super obscure or, more masculine, I feel like doesn't do as well on Pinterest. But, if you have a podcast about motherhood or DIY or beauty or fashion, stuff like that, even business, it does really, really well on Pinterest. It will do really, really well on Pinterest. So that is another platform that I think a lot of people don't utilize and they should be utilizing. So essentially, by diversifying your promotional efforts and utilizing multiple channels to get your show out there, you can effectively reach new audiences and grow your show without relying solely on social media, which is the end game goal here, because social media is hard these days. Like, let's face it is not easy to get seen on social media. It's not easy to get found on social media because there's just so many things that are getting in the way of that. So I would love to know, are you planning on ditching social media for your podcast? Are you still loving it and seeing results from it? Let me know over on Instagram. My handle is @SavvyPodcasting. I'd love to hear from you and talk about that with you in the DMs, and I will see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.